You know, as I was reading this passage of Scripture, getting ready for this morning, this is the first thought that jumped into my mind. This is an original God sighting. You know how in the past few weeks we've been asking you to share with us where you see God alive and well and working in your life. This is an original God sighting, where God worked through Jesus in an amazing and in a powerful way and brought healing, miraculous healing, into this woman's life. Here's somebody who for 18 years had been crippled. 18 years had been held captive by her physical illness, unable to stand up straight, unable to move through life with freedom. And Jesus set that captive free. There's a season of the year where my sciatic nerve acts up. It acts up every year during that season of the year, and when it starts to act up, I know that for the next month and a half, I am going to have a hard time walking around. You've seen me walking around. Some of you have wondered, some of you have asked me, Pastor, are you okay? And because it's when I stand up like this. And I start to walk like this. And when I stand up, I have to very intentionally go, and it's like I'm intentionally making myself stand up straight. And then once I get stand up straight, I'm okay, kind of, sort of. And then I move through the day until I go and I sit down. And then I sit down, and the longer I sit, the worse it gets. And then when I go to stand up again, I'm stood up and I'm bent over. And it hurts to stand. And some of you are laughing, and you're not laughing at me. It's a knowing laugh, right? It's a knowing laugh where you recognize and you understand and you say, yeah, Pastor, been there, done that, experienced it. I understand exactly what you're talking about. And so here's this woman who for 18 years, not just a month out of the year, not just a little period of time, and then she gets relief, but for 18 years, that has been her reality. And she encounters Jesus, and Jesus speaks just a few words and says, your infirmity is healed. And she stands up for the first time in 18 years and is free and is set free and is made whole. There comes a time every year when that season of the year has passed and I know that my sciatica is gone, where I get out of bed in the morning or I stand up from my chair in the office and I go and I stand up like I normally do, and I know that I'm set free. I know that season has passed. I know that little illness has passed, and I know that I'm going to be able to move like I normally do, and I am just filled with joy. And it's just been a little time. Can you imagine what that woman is going through? And then in that moment, the religious leaders begin to speak. And what do they speak? They don't speak praise to God for what has just happened. They don't speak celebration for this woman being set free. What do they speak? They speak words of condemnation. They come after Jesus. And they just say, you know what? This is all good and all that, but you shouldn't have done it on this day. You know, you should have done this on one of the other days. This is not a day 7 thing that should have been done. You should have done this on one of the other 6 days of the week. You should just, this is all wrong, this is bad, and begins to speak like that. Their eyes are blinded. They are distracted by the things of this world. They're distracted by the things of this world to the miracles of God. They miss God working and moving in their midst, in their presence, by the things of this world. You and I are no different. You and I are no different. We get distracted. We get distracted by the fear of what could be. We get distracted by the fear of what could go wrong. We look at life and we think about our lives and we say, well, but this could go bad and but this could go wrong. And we let our minds run away. And as our minds run away with the fears of what could go wrong, we miss what God is doing in our midst. We get caught up with the dreams of what could be. We say, but I want to go do this, but I want to do this, but I want to experience this. I have such big dreams for me that I miss what God is doing in my life right now. This morning I taught the Sunday school class, the younger kids Sunday school class, and Isaac and I were sitting in Sunday school class, and Isaac was talking to me about how he is going to play college basketball, and then he's going to play professional basketball, and he's got these dreams. And there's nothing wrong with the dreams. The dreams are good. The dreams are good. There's nothing wrong with the dreams. But sometimes we get so caught up in the dreams of what tomorrow could hold that we miss what God is doing today. We're looking to the future and we say, when I get there, when that day, when I start for the Philadelphia 76ers, boy, that'll be the day when life is good. And we miss what God is doing in our midst today. We get distracted by our to-do list, the long, long list of things that we think need to be done every single day. We get distracted by that. It begins to weigh us down, and we miss the gifts. We miss what God is doing, and we get distracted by this desire to experience what everybody else is experiencing in life. We look at somebody else's life experience and we say, boy, if only I could have that. If only I could experience what they're experiencing. If only I could have what they're experiencing, boy, then I'd be happy. And when we think like that, we fail to miss. We fail to see what God is doing in our midst today. In our scripture today, people are distracted from seeing the work of God. God works and God moves in a miraculous way, and this woman, this captive, is set free. And the first thing that the religious leader does is he says he can't heal on the Sabbath. He's distracted by rules. He's distracted by regulation. And it's not that he's wrong. It's not that his reading of the Torah is wrong. He's right. He's actually correct in his understanding and his reading of the Torah. the fear of what might be. He had a position. He had authority. He had responsibility. He had a place in life. He was the religious leader. And what was going to happen if this Jesus, who could speak and people were healed, and the crowds of people were turning their attention to Jesus, and they were worshiping Jesus, what was going to happen to him as the religious leader if people started to pay more attention to Jesus? You know, if Jesus walked in here this morning and Jesus started talking, and Jesus started talking to individual people and touching individual people and healing individual people of their deepest needs, their physical needs, their emotional needs, and their spiritual needs, and Jesus is over here on this side of the church doing that, and I'm over here on this side of the church, and I'm talking, and you have a choice to sit on this side and listen to me, or go on this side and listen and interact with Jesus. Where are you going to sit? Where are you going to sit? Yes, thank you. Thank you, Martha. You better go over here and sit with Jesus. And that religious leader knew it. And he was afraid of what was going to be. And since he was afraid of that, he allowed that fear to capture him and to hold him. And that fear blocked him. It blocked him from seeing the truth of what God was doing in that moment. And I don't know that religious leader. I've never met him. I've never talked to him. There's not much written about him in Scripture. But he's a human being. He's a human being like me. He's a human being like you. So there's some things that we can know about him. He wants to be successful. He wants people to appreciate him. He wants to be liked, and he wants to be loved, and he wants to be cared for. And so there's a part of him that has this dream that he's going to be the priest in this place and in this location, and people are going to come to him and to listen, and they are going to walk away, and they are going to say, I was blessed because I was in the presence of this individual. There's a part of him as a human being, it's just there. It's a part of who we are. It's wired into the makeup of who we are as individuals. And so he has this dream that he's going to be able to help people and to heal people and to speak into their lives. And all of a sudden, here comes this Jesus. And Jesus does something that he cannot do. And he's watching this dream dissipate. It's like mist. It's just disappearing. And so he reacts to it poorly. And in the reacting poorly to it, he's blind. He is blind to the movement of God. It robs him of the joy of seeing God at work. So my question to you this morning, what's your biggest fear? What's your biggest fear? What's your fear of what could go wrong? Because that biggest fear, that fear of what could go wrong, that is the thing that's going to stand in between you and you seeing God alive and well and at work in the world. Every single morning when you get up in the morning and you start to move your way through your day, and you find yourself in the store, you find yourself driving down the road, you find yourself at work, you find yourself wherever you find yourself, and all of a sudden you feel in the core of who you are, you feel anxiety, you feel stress, you feel fear beginning to dwell up and to come up inside of who you are. That fear is the very thing that is going to keep you from seeing and seeing clearly the miracles of God, the presence of God all around you. Because what happens in those moments is we pay more attention to the fear than we do to the things of God. What's the biggest dream? What's the biggest dream that you have for yourself as an individual? What is it that you want to see happen? What is the thing that you want to pursue and that you want to chase after and that you want to achieve in your life? And as you go after those things, understand that those things sometimes get in the way of you seeing what God is doing in your midst, in your presence, right here, right now. You miss what God is accomplishing. So, Pastor, what in the world does that look like? A while ago, I wrote a book. A while ago, I wrote a book and published a book. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if that book sold all kinds of copies and, all that kind of stuff? And so I spent a lot of time trying to get that book to sell all kinds of things and do all kinds of stuff. And here's what happened, right? So here's how this works. So I have this, okay, here's the dream. We've got the book, and the book is published, and now we're gonna work a little bit, and we're gonna sell all kinds of copies, and this is gonna be really helpful in people's lives, and that's the dream, and that's the picture. And so, boy, you start to put all kinds of energy and effort into that, and then, well, guess what? Boy, you're selling a little bit, but you're not selling a whole lot, and then all of a sudden, boy, that starts to feel bad. And it starts to feel, that's kind of defeating, and it starts to push down a little bit on who you are, and the dream is not there, and oh gosh, God's not ministering, and God's not making things happen, and I need to work a little harder on that, so I'm going to put a little bit more time into making that happen, and you just keep on moving and moving and moving, and all of a sudden, blind to the things that God is doing in your midst. Blind to the relationships that are there. Blind to what God is doing. Blind to the gifts that God has given you. So finally I sat there one day and said, yeah, okay, whatever. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll pursue little bits and pieces, but, enough of this. We're just going to let it go. Does that make any sense at all? Does it make any sense at all? I mean, and that's sometimes we get caught up in this rat race of a world, and we need to slow down, and we need to stop, and we say, God, where do you have me? Who do you have me in relationship with? God, help me to see where you are alive and well and working. Can you imagine if that priest? Can you imagine if that priest, rather than saying, no, you can't heal on this day, and being blind to the miracle of God, can you imagine if he instead said, wow, this is the temple, this is the place where Jesus spoke and this woman was set free? Can you imagine if he had the eyes to see? Can you imagine how that would have worked and moved in his world? Different set of eyes. Different way of looking at and seeing the world. This week as you move through the world, every day as you get up, every day as you start to leave the house, pray that you would not be distracted by those things that bring fear into your life. It's not saying that those things are not real, because they're very real. But pray that we would not be distracted by them. Pray that we would not be distracted by the dreams of what may be and what could be. Pray that you would not be distracted by that gigantic to-do list. Pray that you would not be distracted by a desire to experience life the way that somebody else has. Pray that you would be content but not complacent with the life that God has given you, and that He would grant you the ability to see where He is alive and well and working in your life, and that you would have the ability to celebrate that. Not only to celebrate it, but to share it with everyone around you. Let's pray together. Abba, Father, we thank you